Welcome to the Philos Project podcast. I'm your host, Dominique Hoffman, and this week we're joined again by our very own Farhad Rezaei. Welcome, Farhad.
Thank you very much for having me, Dominique.
Thank you for being back. Well, having our Iranian expert here today is going to help us unpack what happened this past Monday on April 1st, around 1700. In Damascus, Syria, the Iranian embassy compound was hit. The embassy itself was not hit. It was a building adjacent to it. And the airstrike killed 7 Iranians from the IRGC. And the most senior Iranian official killed in this airstrike was Mohammed Reza Zahedi. And Farhad, help us understand what happened. The news has been a little bit unclear. We've seen threats by Iran to retaliate against Israel, who is responsible for this airstrike. So help us unpack it. What happened Monday, and why is this viewed as a potential escalation in the Israel-Gaza war with Hamas?
So on Monday, the consulate of Iran in Damascus was hit by missiles. And as a result of this attack, several members of the Islamic Revolutionary Guards Quds Force were eliminated. 3 of them were some of the highest ranking leaders in the Quds Force. One of them was, as you mentioned, was General Mohammed Reza Zahedi, who was the top commander in the Quds Force. He was in charge of the regime's network of proxy militias in the region, especially the Shia militia in Lebanon and Syria. He was basically coordinating the proxy groups in the region to attack Israel and the United States forces and interests in the region. In the past, Zahedi was the commander of the Revolutionary Guards Air Force, and then he became the commander of the Revolutionary Guards Ground Forces. There were 2 other guys, two other senior officials who were eliminated in this attack. One of them was Hossein Aminullahi, General Hossein Aminullahi, and the other one was General Muhammad Hadi Haj Rahimi, who were senior ranks in the Quds Force. And of course, there were 7 other officers of the Quds Force who were also killed in this attack. So this guy, Mohammed Reza Zahedi, was the head of the Unit 2000 of the Quds Force, which was in charge of transferring arms from Iran to Hezbollah in Lebanon. Now, the question is, what were they doing in the consulate? They were basically plotting lethal operations against Israel, because Iran is known as a country that is using its diplomatic missions for terror operations against Israel. And this is a violation of international law. This is a violation of the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations, which mandates that diplomatic missions should not be used as a base for launching terror operations against any state. Now, the second part of your question of why is this viewed as a potential escalation in war between Iran and Israel? Well, because this is one of the rarest times that Israel directly hits Iran rather than responding to its aggression by targeting its terror proxies. And this is a significant blow to the regime and its proxy network, because it literally eliminates years of military expertise and also important personal ties that are essential in relationship between the Revolutionary Guards and the proxies it controls in the region.
So interesting. And so how will this, I know I mentioned in the opening, Iran has threatened to, get revenge on Israel. Is it likely that, Iran will directly respond, or will they use their proxies? And how will this threaten Israel's security in light of the war that's happening as well?
Well, the regime's leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, said that they will take revenge, although we know that their options are limited. But I assume that they will probably respond through proxies as usual. And, well, obviously, even responding through proxies is a threat to Israel. But I don't think direct confrontation with Israel is on their plate because of a number of reasons. First of all, the IRGC has no capability for direct war with Israel. They do not have a doctrine for direct war with Israel either. So they always relied on proxy wars when it comes to fighting Israel. The second reason is that they know that the consequence of a direct war with Israel will be high, and it will probably drag the United States into a conflict with Iran. And this is not something that Iranians want. They have always tried to avoid direct confrontation with Iran, with the United States and Israel. The third reason is that they have a lot of domestic problems. And nowadays they are facing several crises at home, which are obstacle to initiating a costly war with the United States and Israel. So I believe direct confrontation with Israel is not an option for the Islamic Republic, but as usual, they will respond through proxies.
And how does this mark a shift with Israel's defensive tactics with this preemptive strike? Obviously, this was a break with how they typically respond to threats, specifically coming from Iran. So how does this mark just a shift? And is this a shift in the overall war with Hamas?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yes, it's a dramatic shift. Why? Because in the past, Israel responded to Iran's aggression by hitting the regime's proxies. But when Naftali Bennet became prime minister in 2020, he changed the notion that it's too risky to take on Iran directly. And he called for implementing the Octopus Doctrine, which required Israel to cut off the head of the snake rather than going after the proxies, because he believed that hitting proxies was not likely to deter the regime. And he was right. But then his government was short-lived, and then Likud came to power, and especially after Hamas attack, the Iran proxy, when Hamas carried out the brutal attack on October 7, the Israelis realized that the Bennett Doctrine should actually be implemented. I believe this approach will be more effective to deter Iran from attacking Israel, and apparently Israelis also believe in the same thing. They know that the only way that deter Iran's aggression is just by hitting it directly, rather than by responding to the aggression by hitting the proxies. You know, the Iranian regime basically uses proxies as a cannon fodder, and they do not care how many Arabs are killed. And I think Israelis have reached this conclusion as well. But once it hit directly, it will feel the real pain and it will stop.
Hmm. And Farhad, in closing, because you have your, ear to Iranian news, how has the regime talked about this in Iran? How's the news covering it in the regime?
Well, there are various voices inside Iran. There are people who call for direct confrontation, um, but there are also moderate voices inside Iran who believes that this is actually a trap by Netanyahu, and the goal is to drag Iran into a direct confrontation with Israel and with the United States, and this will be dangerous for the regime. Who will win this battle eventually? Time will say that, but knowing the regime's modus operandi and the regime's capabilities when it comes to uh, fighting Israel and the United States, I believe direct confrontation is not an option, is not on their table, on the regime's table. And I think, as usual, they will try to respond through proxies.
Hmm. Well, thank you so much, Farhad, for this invaluable insight. And this will be a story that we'll continue to follow. Obviously, it will develop, and especially if there's more preemptive attacks on the part of Israel in the region moving forward against the Iranian regime. Farhad, I know you're working on a report, so if you want to share that with our audience, what are you working on, and where can we follow you on social media?
Yes, I am working on a report regarding the Islamists' anti-Semitism. Of course, this is a co-authored report with my former doctoral supervisor, Professor Ofira Selektar. We are working on Iran's Islamist anti-Semitism. We believe that the large body of literature on anti-Semitism is dealing with the Western anti-Semitism, and the Islamist anti-Semitism, especially the Iranian anti-Semitism, is missing in the literature and this narrative of anti-Semitism. So this is what our report is going to fill this gap, and we're almost done with it. It will be published probably in the end of April or maybe the next month. But it's we're more or less done with it, and that's the latest report that I am working on.
Amazing. And what's your handle on X, or formerly Twitter?
Yeah, it's let me have a look. It's basically my name and my family name with two I at the end. It's FarhadRezaei.
Perfect, Farhad. And I'll link it in our description below because you're very active and have quite a following on X. Well, thank you so much, Farhad, and we will see you, I'm sure, in the coming weeks.
Thank you so much, Dominique.
Thank you. And goodbye, everyone. I will see you next week.